Strap in, kid.
Hello and welcome to the Very Bad Batch Explosion West After Show, breaking down, discussing, and reviewing each episode of the Disney Plus original Star Wars series, Star Wars: The Bad Batch. My name's Tim Blank. Joining me, Ashley Holby.
Hey, Dylan. Excited to be here to talk about Alien.
I mean, yeah, kinda. This week's synopsis was something silly like the Batch finds a mysterious missing vessel or ship or something like that, I believe it was. But I mean, the plot was basically that they find a ship with I think they're called I'll have to Google it in a sec. I think they're called Zello Beasts or Villo Beasts or something like that. It's something that sounds like that. I should double check in a sec. Yeah, but it's basically Alien. So the ship this monster. But the crazy thing is, I'll tell you in a minute. You tell me, what do you think of this episode?
I thought it was pretty good, considering, we've been kind of down on the show the last couple of weeks. I thought it was really enjoyable. Obviously, it's got a little bit more of a horror tinge to it. Obviously, with the start, the opening with, feels like it could have been out of any space horror game or movie in the last couple of years. And this episode feels like it was moving the plot along of what this episode definitely gave us an idea of what the rest of the season potentially could look like, with the cloning technology and them wanting to find Omega because that's the way to unlock get the person to work with them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of interesting threads introduced this episode. I mean, there was actually action this week.
Yeah. So Zillo Beast.
Zillo Beast.
Zillo Beast
has that been introduced before?
Yeah, so that's the interesting little tidbit for this episode, because of course the thing is that they're, when they get onto the ship, they're finding all this clone technology and all this sort of stuff. So back in the Clone Wars, there was I think it was like a two or three episode arc where this giant, a lot larger, so the one in this is, I guess, a baby, or it's just smaller because it's a clone, or something like that. Anyway, one of them sort of rampages through Coruscant, and all the Jedi have to stop it, put a stop to it. But the episode ends with Palpatine ordering it to be cloned, all the way back in the Clone Wars,
wow.
ages and ages and ages ago. And there was even a point where people were asking and kept thinking it was going to show up in Rebels for ages because of this whole, it was going to be cloned in that. But no, it just took about a whole nother show to get a Zillo Beast to show back up in Star Wars. So that was it's a very, very deep cut. But yeah, the implication here is obviously Palpatine all the way back many, many years ago, over 10 years ago in an episode of the Clone Wars, ordered this thing to be cloned, and that's what's happening in this episode, I guess, But yeah, I really liked the episode. I thought it was it's pretty it's pretty simple, I guess, in the terms of what actually happens. I feel like there's lots, we're moving stuff forward by getting back towards the direction of talking about Empire, clones, what clone technology has now been used for, all these things that make more sense for the show to be spending time discussing, not fucking mining for rocks. I really enjoyed that this episode they tell what's a fuck to go fuck themselves.
Sid?
Sid, yeah.
This is the last job, we think. We need to cut ties.
Yep. 20%.
Which I feel
30%.
again, that's going to be something that bites me in the ass. Sid's going to turn him over to the Empire, probably.
Yeah, I reckon that's what's going to happen. Anything for $1, So, bullshit. But yeah, it was a very dark episode. I very much enjoyed the horror vibes. The first time they run onto they get onto the ship and they spot the beast hanging from the roof, or it jumps down from the roof or whatever. You've even got that robot at one stage, just doing the whole horror movie thing where it's crawling out sideways from a door, being you gotta leave, oh no, all that sort of stuff. Still some humor there, when they're trying to run away for the first time, and Tech is I think this ship was a research facility, or whatever. They're we know, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was probably the most fun I've had watching this show in some weeks, I would say, in a time when I spent all of last week's episode just complaining about the show. Which it, like, and that's the thing. This episode isn't heavy on major story reveals or anything, but it feels more in line with what the show should probably be about. I guess that's my major thing, you know, them bumping into a ship that's been ransacked by this escaped clone Zillo beast that was potentially ordered to be cloned by Palpatine in the Clone Wars. That all sounds like something thematically that this show should be investigating, you know? That sounds way more, not whatever we've been doing for the last, for the majority of the last 10 episodes, I feel like is my other major complaint. Was there anything else in this episode that like really stood out to you?
I mean, obviously we're introducing this whole subsect of the Empire of like this research facility and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, this new character that I don't think we've ever seen, this Doctor dude.
Doctor something. I was trying to think. I don't know if I wasn't ringing any bells for me, but
no. But yeah, you know, we all know cloning is a massive part of Star Wars. So, like, even going into the future, you know, is this going to be the instigating point for, you know, Palpatine coming back in Rise of Skywalker?
I mean, as much as I hate the Rise of Skywalker, right? And I hate the whole Palpatine clone thing. That's a movie. It exists. It's canon. Whatever else. So if they can like, you got to make it work. So I'm with all that said, I quite enjoy the whole Palpatine has always in the background been tinkering with clone tech, basically for himself. Which the implication of, and even if that obviously wasn't always the plan from when he said, "Oh, yeah, clone the Zillo beast thing," because at the time I'm sure it was just like he's evil. He probably wants to clone a big destructive beast that took a bunch of Jedi to be able to put a stop to. Just the idea that he can play around with clone tech, it makes a lot more sense. So yeah. I don't know what. I'm just going to double check. What was his name? I think it was Dr. Hemlock.
That sounds right. Royce Hemlock. Wikipedia says it's first. Wikipedia says first appearance.
Okay, there you go.
So,
just felt like doing such a little extra checkaroonie. The other thing I really thought was good, I guess, just as like a little side tangent thing, which is that I enjoyed that Omega isn't questioned about anything. You know? Like when she starts going on about clone tech and all this sort of stuff, no one, including Tech, is like trying to tell her that no
one's mansplaining it.
Yeah, no one's mansplaining clone tech to her. It's like no one even.
She's the expert.
It's just she's the expert. It's like finally a field where she just gets to be, the expert in this sort of thing. Yeah.
That's
so,
cool.
But yeah, overall,
it also raises the question of why Omega is so important to that researcher.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to.
Yeah, is it,
see if they ever explain.
Is it
that.
just parental feelings or something more?
Something more could be. Don't know. All right. That'll do it for this episode of The Very Bad Batch. Of course, if you're listening to this, there should be either now or shortly on the podcast feed the return of The Mandalorians, because at the moment we've got The Mandalorian Season 3 and The Bad Batch Season 2 airing at the same time for the next 4 weeks? I can't remember how many episodes it is. Next
I think
few
there's
weeks
5 episodes left.
So nearly nearly all of The Mandalorian will air before The Bad Batch ends, which is just weird. But anyway.
But 4 weeks, because the finale is a double episode. So.
Okay, yeah. So half of The Mandalorian will have aired, which is still weird. So check that out. Of course, we'll be discussing that, the first episode of that, over on The Mandalorians. And otherwise, if you're listening to this episode, check out all of our Twitters, exposurenetwork.com/Twitter, Discord, exposurenetwork.com/Discord.
Sorry, I forgot my favorite line from this episode. He's like, "Oh, it ate the crew," and Megan's like freaking out. It ate the crew.
Like it's such a shocking realization.
Yeah, it was like a shocking realization as to why there was no bodies anywhere.
Captain Obvious over here.
Yeah.
If you liked the episode, like Explosion Network, like Holocron Entries, like the shows here, you can support us, explosionnetwork.com/support. And until next week...
It was a two-eyed, four-armed little purple people eater, two-eyed, four-armed bigger purple people eater, two-eyed, four-armed giant purple eater. Sure looks strange to me.
Really fucked your own.
Yeah, I really fucked that. That wasn't a great one. Should have practiced.
We'll leave it.